So we got a holiday coming up, big holiday.
We do.
Thanksgiving.
We're so close.
Big
to
American
Thanksgiving.
holiday.
It's weird.
Yeah. I just remembered something I'm going to talk about later in the show that I didn't put on our sheet. But so usually around this time of year, we talk about comfort movies. We talked about that over the last couple episodes. Garrett mentioned that he likes to read more in November because of all the movies he's been catching up on.
Haven't read a single book.
You haven't done it?
I said I haven't read a single book. No, not a single one. I've read some web pages.
An ebook?
You
not
read
an
The Verge.
ebook. Okay, then that's not a good webpage.
No.
Okay.
No. So there goes that idea. I've seen several movies.
Then
though.
I think the opposite of what you said might actually be true.
I know.
I like to spend the time catching up on movies. It gets colder, it's darker a lot earlier now. You want to stay in a little more than normal. So I've been catching up on a couple things this week. One of the cooler things I got to see this weekend was the 25th anniversary release of Saving Private Ryan is out in theaters.
Yeah.
Obviously a great movie, doesn't need to be said again. This was the first time, though, that I got to see it in a theater. I've only seen it on the TV before, so that was a new experience. It's, you've seen it, and if you haven't seen it, there's probably a reason you haven't. Maybe it's too much for you, I don't know. But I will say that movie continues to hold up. A great Spielberg John, a great Tom Hanks performance, great supporting cast all around. Just a really good movie. Highly recommend you check that out again. And what better reason than the 25th anniversary?
How was it in the theater?
It was cool. I mean, so it was just like the normal theater. It wasn't like in the loud IMAX or the Dolby or anything.
40X.
Right. Nothing. No 40X. But it's super loud anyway. That movie is really famous for its for how it showed D-Day in particular. The raw carnage and the violence in that scene. When it came out, there are stories about it being really too much for people who, many of them were still were survivors from D-Day who got to see the movie, and their reactions were very hard to deal with. So this was a really realistic as far as anyone had made at the time. And so seeing it on the big screen and hearing it really loud really makes it even more jarring. I was finding myself, I'm not typically one to be thrown off by swift camera movements. I do fine with the found footage type stuff, but this movie has a lot of shaking, and I found myself getting a little dizzy by it at times. But that was a good. That's war, is what I reminded myself. I was like, well, it would make sense that this is not a very steady movie.
Yeah,
For sure.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's
I think
really
it's.
cool.
I think there's another day,
Arguably-
so check it out.
I was gonna say, arguably Vin Diesel's best role.
Arguably, he's quite good at it. He's not Vin Diesel yet,
No.
but he's got a nice role in that movie.
He's like, what's his name? Garbanzo? I probably had that wrong.
It's not garbanzo, but that's a bean. But I think you're actually close, but I don't want to repeat it and make a similar mistake to you. But I think that
It's been a long time.
sounds pretty close.
Been a long time since I've seen it. I've never seen it in the theater, and I think it would be really
It would be, and it's one of those movies where it's dang near 3 hours long, so if you're going to watch it, I like to do it in a theater where you're going to be fully immersed in it. And that helps. I will say,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a perfect movie. It's a little long, and I felt it a little bit at times. So there's that. It is very long, but I still recommend you go.
Yeah.
You rewatch it at some point or watch it for the first time if you haven't yet.
Very cool.
For
Very
sure.
cool. What else have you guys been watching? I don't feel like I've watched much that's like new. I've watched a bunch of old stuff, so I got
You
nothing
watch
this
anything
week.
new recently, David?
Me too. I watched on old stuff. I watched Out of Sight, which is a Steven Soderbergh movie from 1998. It's kind of a very clear predecessor to the Ocean's 11 movies, starring George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez, a bunch of other people who were like, they're in this movie. That was a lot of fun. But new, I went and watched The Marvels, and Josh, I think you talked about it a little bit last week. And I had a lot of fun with it. I do think that, like you said, it's had its issues. And people always say, I had my problems with it, but they can never really be clear. I know exactly what didn't work for me with it, but I'll avoid avoid kind of spoiling it here. But just suffice to say, it did feel like it was a little cut up at times. There was clearly some things that were just cut for time because people would like have sudden changes to their appearance, and you're like, what the heck happened there? Or something like that. But I laughed a lot. Josh, there was one particular reference to Broadway that I found quite hilarious. And so it's doing terrible at the box office. I feel really bad for it because, like, of all the superhero movies that I have seen that deserved to bomb, this was not necessarily one of them.
This was destined to fail because of the fanboys. Mm-hmm. The fanboys already ruined this one. They weren't going to go see it. They already tried to bomb it after the first one. So
I think that,
like, there was no way. I feel like the decline that all of the superhero movies have been on lately, this one was just kind of the train wreck of the train wreck.
I think it's a confluence of things. I think that's part of it. Obviously, the strike had a big impact, a real lack of promotion on account of that. I think that, unfortunately, Marvel Studios has lost a lot of goodwill with the people that came out to see the first Captain Marvel, whether it's their VFX treatment of people who are doing VFX, whether it is some of the Disney Plus shows that haven't been that high quality. So it's just kind of like the people that should have come out for this movie, the people that they could rely on in past years, just for whatever reason didn't, and all those things converged at one time on this. And it's kind of too bad because it's not that bad of a movie. Like if this was any of some of the other movies from the last year, or if this was like The Flash or Shazam, like those ones didn't do that well. But, if it was Aquaman, then you'd be like, yeah, all right. I mean, I haven't seen Aquaman yet, but, it would make sense because people are just uninvested in the DC franchise as it's going until it restarts. But anyway, I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed myself. So if you are sitting there thinking, should I go see the Marvels? I think you should go give it a try because it is fun at times. It does have some pretty interesting fight choreography at times. So there you go. And the VFX weren't bad. That's been a complaint recently. I didn't notice any glaringly awful VFX.
No.
Good to know.
Yep.
I have little faith in any of the remaining superhero movies for the rest of the year.
What is even left for the rest of the year?
I think there's only one. I think there's just Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom.
And yeah, I don't have a lot of faith in that, so. Yay. No. Okay, well, there's our little catch-up on what we've been watching this week. We would love to hear what you all have been watching lately. Let us know on our social media pages. You can go to somanysequels.com and find links to those, or you can just search in whatever app you're using. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok, so check those out. But let's get into what we're talking about this week, which is wrapping up our month of So Many Fockers. Mm-hmm. This amazing trilogy of family films. We've hit the culmination. We're at Little Fockers. Mm-hmm. Before I just can't stop saying it. We're gonna get into the box office first. Let me read you the premise of Little Fockers as described by Letterboxd, our favorite movie-themed social media app. Kids bring everyone closer, right? It has taken 10 years, 2 little Fockers with wife Pam, and countless hurdles for Greg to finally get in with his tightly wound father-in-law, Jack. After the cash-strapped dad takes a moonlighting job for a drug company, Jack's suspicions about his favorite male nurse come roaring back when Greg and Pam's entire clan descends for the twins' birthday party. Greg must prove to the skeptical Jack that he's fully capable as the man of the house. All right, we've already established the first 2 movies in this franchise were pretty significant commercial hits. Was the long-awaited end of the trilogy as successful, David?
Interestingly enough, I think we can say yes. It was pretty successful.
Dang it!
They did increase the budget. So the budget for Meet the Fockers was $80 million. The budget for Little Fockers was, get this, $100 million in 2010. Where did it all go? Who knows? But salaries has to be, because I know that both De Niro and Stiller had some kind of deal where they got paid a bunch more for the success of Little Fockers. So Little Fockers would end up opening. It's so funny to say. Little Fockers would open December 22nd of 2010. So that's a Wednesday. So I'll include that here in a minute. It's 5-day total. But its opening weekend was December 24th of that year. It brought in $30.8 million, beating out True Grit. Andrew Nicholsby, curses the sky of that day, I'm sure. The remake of True Grit by the Coen brothers brought in 28.4. So a pretty hotly contested race there. So that means with its 5-day, because it opened on Wednesday, its 5-day total was $45 million for that open. So not too bad, all things considered. Hang on. I'm back. All right. Tron Legacy was the number 3 movie that weekend in its second week, $19.1 million. The Chronicles of Narnia, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader came in at number 4 with $9.4 in its third week. And at number 5, he's your favorite troll. It's Yogi Bear, starring Justin Timberlake and Dan Aykroyd, was in the number 5 spot in its second week with $7.8 million. So Little Fockers...
It's a rough week.
Much like its predecessor, Meet the Fockers, Little Fockers actually did pretty good damage at the box office, only dropping 16% and finishing number 1 again in its second weekend. They left it in theaters for about a year, about 53 weeks, all things considered, just making money. So it also is one of the top holiday movies, bringing in $14 million on Christmas Day, the number 17 movie on Christmas Day. And hang on, actually, I have looked at the wrong one right there. There it is, Little Fockers. And then on New Year's Day, it's the number 17 movie all time with $11 million on New Year's Day. For the year of 2010, Little Fockers was the number 16 film, bringing in $148 million in the United States. It would bring in an additional $162 million overseas for a worldwide total of $310.6 million. In the past, you had to do at least double your budget to break even. From what I've read these days, most movies need to do about two and a half, just because of a combination of inflation and marketing, and the way that whole system has changed over the last several years. So most movies need to do about 2.5. I think this one probably covered with $310 million worldwide on a $100 million budget. So it was successful. So I mean, like, from a money standpoint, they could have done more of these, I think. But we'll talk about the critical aspect here in a minute. For 2010, number 1 movie that year was Toy Story 3, followed by Alice in Wonderland, Iron Man 2, Twilight Saga, Eclipse, and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. That's your top 5 movies in the domestic United States and Canada for that year. I'm happy to say it was a pretty fun year. You know, you also had Inception that year, like Despicable Me, How to Train Your Dragon. Little Fockers came in just behind Grown Ups. So that's another movie we reviewed. This is our 7th. Just behind it and just ahead of Megamind, like barely ahead of Megamind. This is our 7th 2010 movie, including Toy Story 3, Grown Ups, Iron Man 2, Scott Pilgrim, Kick-Ass, and The Crazies, which was my So Many Scares pick last year. So that's right. There's your box office recap for Little Fockers. Any questions on that, you guys?
No questions from the audience this time. That is not as exciting of a year as some we've hit before. Plus, it sounds like we've hit a lot of them already. We've been to 2010 7 times. That's crazy.
Yes.
No questions. I think from me. Let's go ahead and jump into Little Fockers here. We're going to go around and do a quick little, couple minutes each of our overall thoughts of Little Fockers. Meet the Little Fockers, I'm going to call it. And then we'll get into more. We'll break down a little more deep into this movie, as deep as you can go into this very, very, very shallow movie. I'll go first. Not good. Not great. Way worse than even the second one, which was I think I scored it just a touch under Meet the Parents. This is going to be more than that. Spoiler alert. I'm going to start immediately I'm annoyed upon finishing the movie because I don't care what they try to argue. It's not in any way about the little Fockers. Why is it named Little Fockers? There's nonsense. There's no reason. The movie is about Jack thinks that Greg's cheating on Pam. Right. Nothing to do with the little Fockers.
It should be called Sneaky Focker.
It should be called Sneaky Focker. So that is my main and chief complaint with this movie is the title is terrible. I'm sure they could have found another Focker pun. Or make the movie about the little Fockers.
Make it more about the kids.
They were clearly there. Yeah. They just didn't have anything to do.
They had some moments, but they weren't the core.
Second complaint. Jack is as dumb as he's ever been. Jack is very dumb in this now. He's no longer the intimidating father-in-law. He's the goofy dummy. He looks like the idiot compared to Greg in this one, as he's like poorly following him around and stuff, and he's getting all this information wrong. It's like, Jack, you've seen better days, my friend. And then they just do a really poor job of tying in the rest of the family, way worse than they had in the past. There's no reason for the Fockers to be there, but they kind of shoehorn them in random scenes. Roz has a TV show. Why? There's a lot of why. Why?
There's a lot of why.
Why? So that's my summary of my thoughts of this movie is why. Next.
See, and Josh, I have an answer to your question. And the answer is the almighty dollar.
20.
The Benjamin himself.
Say, why not?
Yes, the money.
Not
because as David said, this movie made so much money. And this movie feels like a movie that was meant to make money. Someone went, hey, you know what movie's made a lot of money? The Meet the Focker Parent movie franchise. That's really made a lot of money. You know who's still really popular in 2010? Ben Stiller and Robert De Niro. And you know what we should do? Let's just put them in the most silly situations and do the most over-the-top things, because that is what happened to movies in the 2010s, is that they just kind of lost their way. They thought, how can we make the most money, and how can we do the most over-the-top thing with the most shallow-minded anything that can kind of get us from point A to the end. As long as we kind of have this thing that can kind of come together and it's semi-established, we just want the franchise money maker. And that is what this movie was.
Built-in audience. So early on, I actually was kind of enjoying myself. I was thinking of this as, this is like the Cars 3 of this franchise, whereas Cars 1 is like, all right, hey, not bad. Okay, it's a little goofy at times, but whatever. Cars 2 is like, the worst thing that's ever happened to cinema, as is Meet the Fockers. And then this was like, hey, we're starting out a little bit more grounded. Things are a little bit more realistic. Okay, I'm following you. We're doing good. But I have to admit, I lost interest by the hour mark. I did not care to, because what happens is that, like you said, Josh, Jack thinks that Greg's having an affair, and Greg's clearly not having an affair. We, the audience, know. And so by around the hour mark, I thought, I don't want to watch Jack find out that he's not having an affair. I'm so checked out of the finale of this movie. So that really kind of killed it for me. I kind of do still think it is the Cars 3. But at the same time, I just lost interest. So, I mean, like, whatever else they had left was like, maybe they'll get some funny gags out of this. And I'll admit, I laughed at some of the funny gags. But the story, I just kind of lost investment in before it even got to the finish.
Yeah, I laughed at a couple early funny gags. I'm gonna say the first one because it's one of the scenes I wrote down. I got an actual audible laugh out of me because it was so unexpectedly dumb when Jack asks Greg if he will be the Godfucker.
The Godfucker.
I groaned after I laughed, but it truly caught me off guard. I was not ready for the Godfucker.
Yeah.
And I chuckled.
Honestly,
Definitely.
That could have been the title of this.
It
movie,
would have been a
actually.
better title.
Godfucker
Yes.
would have been the great title, and then the movie would have made sense. You can do the whole cheating thing. You know, I'm trying to find a successor to my family after the whole. You know, you could have really played into the Godfather satire type thing, and I think that would have been fun.
That was what I thought too, and clearly it wouldn't be like, is that too offensive? They called the movie Little Fockers.
Right.
It can't be that the Godfucker is too offensive. The build to it, the drama of Jack being like, Greg, I need you to take this very seriously, and he's like really walking him down. And he's like, oh, okay, Jack, what is it? I need you to be, and the music swells, the Godfucker. And my wife lost it. We did not catch the scene. We had to rewind 3 times because she laughed every time he said Godfucker. It was so stupid, and yet exactly the right amount of stupid for a laugh from me, clearly from Josh, from my wife. And my favorite part was my favorite part is the aftermath of Greg acting like being very, hey, I need you to do this for your dad, And a part of me was like, what I wish is that Greg just decided, Jack's such an idiot, I'm just going to screw with him with this Godfucker thing. Instead, he just totally buys into it, and it just made me so disappointed. I just wanted, because like when he comes and he's kissing him on the cheek, I was like, yeah, just screw with his head. But then it was clearly obvious that he was just taking it all super to heart. He really wanted to be the new head of the Fokker Burns family.
Well, did you see the confidence that it instilled in him when he finally felt like he had his approval, and like he walked around with like this confidence, and it went too far, obviously. But like, I mean, he walked around, his posture was good, his shoulders were square. He walked out and was like, you're gonna eat that lasagna. And then he got thrown up on, as in like The Exorcist, and that's when the movie just started going down.
Yeah. Well, when he tells his wife to be quiet, he's like, I got it. The pause.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then he's at dinner. He gets thrown up on, right? Well, later he has one of what has to be the most gruesome incident in the Fokker franchise, where he like severs his finger.
Oh, right.
That was.
And then answers the phone.
The turkey. And then answers the phone. I thought he cut his finger all the way off.
I wouldn't have answered the phone at all.
This is horrible.
My finger's
cut.
But
yeah, that was a hilarious way to go with it. The reveal later that Dr. Bob had been asked previously to be the Bob father, was equally not a full-on laugh, but I was like, oh yeah, that's good. All right, Bob father.
It's not as good.
Not as good. Illustrates.
This you said like they had a lot of scenes that were like kind of so far extreme for what even this franchise is. Josh, the other scene that you wrote down was the erection scene. Do you want to talk about that?
I don't, but yes.
No, you don't. I don't blame you.
Yeah, there is this, as I mentioned at the beginning, Jack seems to be really dumb in this movie. And for some reason, he takes an erectile dysfunction pill that Greg is helping to market, basically, as part of his job as a nurse. He sneaks into his hotel room and... No, it wasn't in his hotel room. It was at the back of the house. No. But anyway, he takes the erectile dysfunction pill, and then at that time, a little later, decides to confront Greg about his allegations of cheating on Pam. Well, Greg quickly notices that Jack has a large erection and asks how long he's had it. It is determined that he's had it way too long and he needs to go to the ER. Perhaps the only Jack-like thing he does do is refuse to be taken to the hospital for this and to do it themselves, and I do think that is a Jack-like thing. Yes. But then we have to see, without directly seeing,
we have to imagine
Greg injecting Jack's penis with a adrenaline shot. And also at that time, one of the little Fockers opens the door, sees his grandpa being stabbed in the penis by his father's syringe. It's a whole thing. And I was
traumatizing.
It is just traumatizing for a kid. It's traumatizing for me as an audience member. It's not even funny. It wasn't funny.
No.
I don't know what's funny about that.
No. It was the definition of like early 2000s humor that this movie held on to, because like it's something you would see, or it's a thing that would happen in like a National Lampoon's, college
Yeah,
sluts
it's
or
like
whatever,
the scene where they
some
were,
kind of, like, movie like that.
they were like, this is the one that they're all going to talk about when they see it. And I don't know if they did.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
It was such like, because like what this movie sort of, this franchise has leaned into cringe comedy at times. And this is like just such a cringe situation that like nobody would ever want to be in. When the little kid started walking down the hall, I out loud went, "Oh no!" And just kept saying no every time. He was like, "Okay, Jack, ready?" And he's like, 1, 2, and I was like, "No!" And then he opened the door, and I was like, "Oh gosh!" And it was so bad.
The level that they tried to show that particular kid, the boy of the twins, I don't know their names, as is a problem going back to the title of the movie, The Little Fockers. I don't know their names. But the boy twin, there was that scene where she was like, "Daddy, can I ask you a question? Do girls poop through their vaginas?" Like, what is who writes this and goes, "That's it. That's the winner."
This is not what Meet
of
the
all the
Parents
things.
was.
This is what I'm gonna have this 5-year-old say.
Yeah. It's just so much more like overt than anything that you really got in like Meet the Parents. And that was part of my problem, I think, too, with Meet the Fockers, is how much more overt things are as opposed to being sort of, I don't know if they were necessarily subtle with Meet the Parents, but there was kind of like these little, like, they would say something and they would just hang there as like, oh, that might be taken the wrong way. And here it's just, poop out of vagina, injection into penis. Like it's just as out there as it can be. I want to mention a line, just an exchange though. So this is some genuine. I'd laughed. This is some genuine laugh from David right here. Is they're in the car, and Jack's just kind of like pressuring Greg on different things, and he goes, "Are you still physically attracted to my daughter, Greg?" And he goes, "To Pam? Yeah. Are you kidding? Yes, Jack. There's never been a problem with that." And he goes, "Even after her body endured the hellish ordeal of birthing twins?" And I laughed out loud. And then he goes, "Yes, even it's still all good under the hood." And Jack goes, "That's disgusting, Greg."
It's a series of terrible things to say about your daughter.
It's the definition of Greg can't win.
Yeah.
When we talked about it in Meet the Parents, it's like, what was he supposed to say? Like, no, Greg, actually, your daughter's experience of birthing twins has made it hard to make love to her. Greg, why would you say that? But saying, like, no, everything's fine. No, Greg, that's disgusting. How dare you tell me about my daughter's private parts? It's that classic, Greg can't win. But Ben Stiller and Robert De Niro, it's a scene made for them. They nail that. So there you go. There's one of my highlights of the movie, is just that car exchange.
Yeah, one of the other things that I think is more memorable than some of the movies themselves are the people that are in it as like little side characters. Because again, for me, 2010 is such a weird moment in time. And before I get to the people who are not famous but will be that are in this movie, I also was like blown away that. So there's the scene where Robert De Niro is investigating Andy Garcia, and he finds her MySpace page.
I'm glad you said
That was the #1 Google search on the thing, was MySpace, and I was like, in 2010?
2010?
And like, I get it. I think it was so, I was like, it wasn't Facebook, it was MySpace.
It's hard to remember when everything took off, because I can't remember exactly what year Facebook came out, but I was like, Facebook pretty quickly outpaced MySpace by 2010, I feel like.
I don't think quite yet. I think it was actually a decent reference for that time. Yeah, I think this was still in the transitional phase where a lot of people were doing both. Because I had the same thought. I tried to look up some information.
That said, I had not seen a, I guess, 2010 era MySpace page layout in years. So I was like, is this what MySpace looked like? I have no memory of that.
Plus, it's entirely possible that this could have been written a year or so earlier, which could, with the speed of tech. Anyway, it was a good reference.
Yes, okay. But then to start the movie, you see you get Jessica Alba. She is one of the stars. Which, poor Jessica Alba, she never has a good character to play. She's always just hot girl. Insert title.
Well, as this movie refers to her as boner medicine, which I think is pretty.
Pretty
ridiculous. Yeah, really on the nose.
But you're introduced to her as the drug rep, and then like she just goes into this hospital where Kevin Hart is there, early baby Kevin Hart, who hasn't quite become Kevin Hart yet.
Didn't even really have
trying to inject.
I was gonna say, didn't even really have like a show moment. You know what I mean? Like he was like very, very background. Not like he didn't even have like a special like couple of lines he gets to say that are like, oh man, that guy's going places. You know?
No, he was just a guy trying to get his start in the movies and stuff, and so he's there trying to give a guy some kind of rectal situation. I don't know what it was. And then this drug rep just jumps in there and starts doing that. That's an insurance problem right there. No hospital would be okay with that. No nurse should let that happen.
No, that's a violation.
No nurse should be happy with that.
No, she's not a licensed nurse.
No.
Nor does she work for the hospital. Liabilities.
No. Yeah, exactly. We have Jordan Peele in there, Rob Hubel, Nick Kroll, Harvey Keitel all make nice little appearances. Did anybody stand out for you all?
I mean, I definitely noticed
Kevin Hart. I literally was like, Jordan Peele. Yeah.
Jordan Peele and Kevin Hart were like, what?
And then, when I did see Harvey Keitel, I did say, Harvey Keitel? Like, I was just like, of all the people, but he's good friends with De Niro.
See, and I kept wondering, what is the purpose of this Randy character? I don't even know why why do we have...
There was no purpose of Randy.
Why give his name if he's not even playing a character that's worth having? I don't get it.
Exactly.
Because, Harvey Keitel is famous at this time. And I just wanted to say about Jessica Alba real quick. What just a terribly flat character,
100%, yeah. Poor her. I mean, again, she always seems to get stuck with that, and it's just almost not even fair to her. It's not,
no. And I gotta say, for a lot of the movie, it's hard to even tell if she's actually trying to show interest in Greg or if she is just, like, overly enthusiastic. It doesn't get really, like, obvious until she comes on to him when she's drunk. And they, like, fall into the pool pit. And that's like, still, what is this movie?
Yeah.
Bad. That's what this is.
I don't know.
Because it's like not outrageous enough to like shock you, I guess, but at the same time, not really that. God, it's just not creative, and it's not. And the actual conflict of the movie is so like you've already seen it,
right? Because by the third movie, you're like, okay, why are you all still having this fight? Do you not trust him or not?
Rinse and repeat.
You put him in the circle of trust in 2 movies now. He keeps proving himself, and you keep not being good. It keeps not being good enough.
That's why I was so hopeful for that brief moment that Greg was just screwing with Jack, because Jack is such a jerk. But then, I shouldn't have hoped that. I shouldn't have, because that's not the dynamic. Anyway. Do you guys want to talk about
what?
Yeah.
What'd you have?
Do you want to talk? What were you going to say, Josh? It's more important what you.
Well, I was going to ask if I wanted to toss out one final scene that I wanted to talk about, which was the final scene when it is suddenly Christmas, and they're having a Christmaka celebration to merge, the Focker family Hanukkah and Christmas, and then I was like, oh my God, is this now a fucking Christmas movie?
Yeah,
I don't see a reason. Listen, we established that Meet the Parents is 100% a Thanksgiving movie. I established that I would watch the Meet the Fockers after the young ones went to bed and you were still there with the drunk family. Then you could turn on Meet the Fockers and this would be a great time. Now, this one you shouldn't watch, but whatever. Fold that bridge. Make it a Christmas movie. Here, go for it.
Nah.
Not good
This
enough?
breaks several of David's basic rules. If you go back to our Christmas rules episodes, we don't see any nudity.
First of all, David's rules aren't simple or basic. They're militant.
Oh, they were concrete. I actually had rules. That was a first off. If you go back and you listen to that episode, you guys had no rules. I had real rules. And this one breaks several of them. So, I'm just going to put that out there. Go back and listen to our Christmas, What Makes a Christmas Movie podcast. Pretty great. Pretty great episode, I got to say. But, that was... honestly, the best part about that was them all saying, we're going to move next door. And Greg being like, no one's moving next door. You're going to stay in our respective states as far away from each other as possible. We'll see each other once a year. Like, I very much... I don't know if I related to that moment, but I was definitely like, that's a good... I like this argument.
So...
Anyway.
What do you guys think the legacy of this movie is going to be in this, or not this movie in particular, but this franchise, if it even has one anymore?
I think it does because I think that we live in a world of nostalgia. And I said this off mic, and I think I said it in the first episode, where this franchise and this movie, it feels like it holds this like wholesome place in people's hearts. Like, you know, at its core, these comedies, quote unquote, around some of them, are like wholesome, family, innocent. That's what they're trying to convey in all of them. It's not anything overly offensive for the most part. You may not like it, but it's not like, you know, gonna raise any red flags for most people. And then I don't think people have watched them since they've come out. And I think that people have these positive, funny memories, and they remember the funny parts, and then they haven't seen them again. And so I think that this, and the success combined with the nostalgia, I think gives it a solid legacy that people will just remember fondly, but won't revisit.
You know, I think that's solid, Garrett. I think that it is, well, it's a millennial franchise, right? It came out between 2000 and 2010. That's the prime years for the millennial watch crew, right? We all, you know, remember the Meet the Parents at the very least. I don't remember what our engagement was with Meet the Fockers exactly, but they came out in that prime time, you know. People are good, so there is going to be a certain nostalgia for people our age for Meet the Parents. Maybe some people a little older than us. But I kind of feel like it's one of those ones, it's like it's an aged poorly franchise. Like it's going to be one of those ones where if you watch it in 2040, you're going to be like, what the heck were they doing here? I think Meet the Parents has an element of it'll stand up to time. Like some things are going to be awkward probably, but for the most part, the premise of meeting your in-laws or meeting, you know, the parents of your significant other is always going to be a fairly relevant one. The other two, I just don't know. It feels like they shouldn't have been made. Like it feels like obviously they felt like they had the chance to, but or they had the stuff that they could work with, but I don't feel like the other two are memorable at all. And the first one is. So like I don't know. I feel like it's a very uneven franchise. I think that's the legacy, is an uneven Ben Stiller comedy.
I think that's
franchise.
more or less where I'm at. That the Meet the Parents definitely stands up over time a lot better than the trilogy as a whole, and certainly better than the other two. And I think that it's enough. You know, I don't even know if I would recommend anyone watch the other two, honestly. Like, just if you haven't seen any of them, watch the first one, and if you like it, maybe stop. Just because it won't get better. It doesn't get better. It only gets like, okay.
Like,
you know, like, as it goes along. So that's what I would say. I think the Meet the Parents legacy is strong, and the Fockers definitely paid some bills for people, so that's good for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
to an extent. I mean, apparently, Dustin Hoffman did not want to do Little Fockers. He either didn't like the story or didn't like how much money he was going to get.
Clearly.
He was right on both counts.
That was clear. And I was like, oh my God, Dustin Hoffman didn't want to do this movie at all. That's why he's in Spain learning the flamenco.
He has one scene with Roz.
Because he wasn't going to do the movie, they had planned to have him die between Meet the Fockers and Little Fockers. But somehow, Universal and him, they worked it out, and he did 6 scenes exactly. He was like, okay, all right, I'll come in, I'll do a few of these. But he didn't want to do it.
They could just not be in it. You don't have to kill them at all.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. So, yeah, I think that, you know, if it ends here, which I think it should, it's an uneven franchise.
Yeah, but you've talked about, David said something about wanting to, or thinking about what could be a good movie of this. Like, what do you have? I listen, the only thing that I have is a title. But what do you have?
What is the title? Help me out here, and we'll start
for
there.
me, you have to continue with the theme, and you just have to take it to the next level, and it has to be the Grand Fockers.
Now, that's an option. I think that's definitely an option. So, it is the age of the geriatric sequel, all right? We have Top Gun Maverick. We have Tron Legacy came out right after, right? We have Hocus Pocus 2. Countless others that I can probably think of if you gave me the time. And so, like, guess what? Ben Stiller is 1 year older right now than Robert De Niro was when he did Meet the Parents. So Ben Stiller in the Jack role. Now, I'm not saying do a remake. What I'm saying is now he's the dad. He's the person who is getting met, right? So now you have to stand up to Greg, right? And so it's his daughter, his son. I don't care which one you do. But maybe it's both. Maybe both are bringing significant others back home to meet the other, right? So I just think that's probably the easiest thing to do. You put Greg in that role. You have him, maybe, Robert De Niro is still alive. So you have him come in and give some disapproving glances. I don't know. But I think that's probably the most obvious way to go, especially if you do. And now if you do the Grand Fockers, then, obviously you're bringing in kids. I don't know. So I mean, it would be as dumb as anything that they've done. Like they can't make the franchise worse. That's the thing. You really can't. You can't lower the expectation. It can only go up, right? So that's sort of
I don't think so.
What I was thinking. The other option is you just do a remake and you just have Ben Stiller play Jack Burns. Just have him be the big tough guy.
Just have Ben
but
Stiller
have him be like
Jack. No.
Just have him just really overdo it. Be Ben Stiller over the top.
The way that you do it is actually you have it written from a Gen Z perspective. That's how you have to do it. You can't do it from a millennial perspective because that's already been told.
Ben Stiller's,
so it has to be told it has to be modernized. Yeah. It has to be told from a Gen Z perspective.
Exactly.
Of going to meet the parents. And I think, I think that would be the way it's done.
What that allows you to do is it allows you to tell a story where, Ben Stiller as a person and Greg sort of as a character are on that cusp between Baby Boomer and Gen X. Like he's born in 65, so it's that weird middle year it's either right at the beginning of Gen X or it's right at the end of Baby Boomer. So it does give you an interesting film matchup where you could have like a young Gen Z guy who wants to impress, Greg, who is a, kind of Gen X guy, and see how those two generations clash. I mean, the clash of generations makes for an interesting film. So you could, if you write it from that perspective, like you said, of what's now, John, what's the modern equivalent of a male nurse? We'd write it from that perspective, and how Greg deals with that as someone who was progressive for the year 2000. What is he now? You know what I mean? So I don't know. There's a conversation to be had. Whether or not the movie gets made, I don't know, but you could definitely, get a bunch of writers together and see what you come up with.
Yeah, I just think if they were to make a movie like that, just make it a new movie and don't call it part of Meet the Parents or a reboot or anything. Like, we already know that every idea is done over and over again, and Meet the Parents itself was a remake, and also just not a terribly unique story. Like we've said, it's a tale as old as time. You're meeting the parents. Mm-hmm. The title is the story. So, just make a new family movie.
Bryan Cranston did it with James Franco, didn't he?
Why him? Yeah, not as good, but also
Bernie Mac did it with Ashton Kutcher.
That one I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of that one.
Anyway, I don't have a suggestion because I hope they don't make another one.
I hope they don't make another one.
I really hope they don't. I also don't. I want to make that clear. But
that is my suggestion. Make more family movies, but don't make them Meet the Parents movies. Just be new.
Yeah.
Okay. But the franchise, man, the existence of the name, the name value.
We gotta eventually they gotta realize they gotta have new IP.
That's true.
And this is the time to be laying that, and then you milk that IP to death. But you gotta keep making new ones at some intervals.
Yeah, we're running out.
We're running out of IP. All right. Well, speaking of running out of IP, we're done with the Fockers, the Focker franchise.
Thank God.
Lay it to rest.
Get them the fuck out of here.
So many Fockers are done. Let's get into the letterbox game, though. We're gonna all try to guess a score on a 0 to 5 scale of what we think the letterbox community average of Little Fockers is. Just to read a few of the most popular reviews of this movie. Indy gave it half of 1 star and said it contains one of the most profound thematic trends found in modern life. Not enough Laura Dern, who we didn't even mention, but truly there wasn't enough. I
forgot to put Laura Dern on the list. Yeah.
This review is from 2012, so it's missing a little bit of a creative renaissance that Mr. De Niro's had. But Dirk says 1 star. The artist formerly known as Robert De Niro proves again that nothing is safe from the black hole that is his career. And then 2 more. Alexi gave it another half of 1 star and said, "This fucking sucks shit." And then 2 stars from Chloe. LMAO, why is Nick Kroll an extra in this? Exactly. All great questions, all great reviews.
I do want to add Robert De Niro got a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2011. And he said, "I'm so glad that you could give me this award before the reviews came out for Little Fockers."
Smart.
Yeah. At least you knew.
All right.
He knew.
Time to guess.
What am I, in last still?
Yes, that's true.
2.3.
That's a good one. $2.1.
Ooh, okay. Before we get there,
Damn, that's low.
did anybody see the Rotten Tomato score already?
No.
Great. So that's a tiebreaker opportunity there. Man, those top reviews were really low.
They were
2.5.
2.5. Okay, I'm gonna need to pull up that Rotten Tomatoes score because no, wait, no, I will. The answer is 2.4.
2.4.
So 2.3 from Garrett, and
Dang.
2.5 from David means we are gonna have to break this tie. So let me pull up Rotten Tomatoes real quick, and we'll give this one a shot to see if we can break the tie and decide who's going to be the winner. Our leader of most of the year or our dead last. But on a technicality. Okay, I have this.
I have a thought. I have a question. Or are we going to do the critics score or are we going to do the audience score? Because I argue that we do the letterbox score, which is of the fans. Thus, we should not necessarily do the critics score. I want to know what it is, but I think we should guess what the fans
the audience
think. Because, honestly, screw the critics. That's what I think.
Oh,
Okay, then go ahead. I got them both, so we'll do we'll
Garrett,
do
go
the
ahead.
audience, and then I'll tell you the critics just for fun.
I still think it's going to be bad. I don't think it's going to be good.
Meet the Fockers. Rotten Tomatoes was 38. I can tell you that.
Oh,
From
really?
audience?
Okay.
From
I was
the
gonna give it
critics,
more than that.
the Little Fockers or Meet the Fockers from a week ago. That was a critic score.
Oh, from the critics. Okay.
I don't
think
know what the
fans will
audience
like it
score
more.
for that one was.
I think that it's going to be like a 53 for
Okay,
the audience.
53.
The audience is
That is rotten.
the audience is famously pretty forgiving. I'll say a 61.
Okay, we got 61, which is barely fresh. And then we got 53, which is definitely rotten. This movie is rotten, so it is going to go to Garrett. Although you were both quite a bit off. The audience score is 34%.
Wow.
So off by about 19.
Not as forgiving as I expected.
And the critic score
equally.
is 9. 9%.
That
low.
is appallingly low.
Yeah, as star-studded
I feel really
as it
bad
is,
for what
I'd
my
say that's
rating is going to
accurate.
be.
I'd say that's accurate.
as star-studded as it is,
I agree with them on
heartbreakingly
sometimes,
lazy,
sometimes I
Little
agree.
Fockers takes the top-grossing
Heartbreakingly
trilogy
lazy.
to embarrassing new lows.
Ooh, I agree with that consensus.
So there you go.
Man, 2.4 on Letterboxd, a 9 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah. What are
See, I think that's why Letterboxd is a little bit better because it factors in the fact that some people do like it enough to bring it to a 2.4.
What are
I'm gonna
our
give it a
scores?
2.5. Initially, I was gonna give it a 3 because I thought to myself, I got some laughs. It wasn't so, at first I thought to myself, it wasn't so bad, but I gotta admit, this conversation has really helped to bring out to my memory some of the parts that I even looked past. Yeah, so I'm just a 2.5 is as good as I can do for this. It's not very good.
1.5 for me.
Yeah, I have. Oh, nice. Not bad. It's a 1-star movie for me. Yeah, it's just really
It's
bad.
really not good. Yeah. 1.5 is weak on my scale.
Oh, see, 1.5 is that coveted bad but entertaining, and 1 is just bad. This couldn't even be entertaining enough to hit that half-star necessity of just I had a good time. It's bad, but I had a good time. That's
for
really
me-
all I'm looking for. And this was, and that you could argue for me could be Meet the Fockers, but
Yeah.
this one was just not good at all.
See, yeah, and for me, this was bad, but it was more on like the disappointing side because I was interested to a point, and then I just lost interest. So like I don't know, it just kind of like it lost me, and so I was giving it credit. I shouldn't have given it that much credit. A 9. Wow.
All right. Well, that's our.
Oh, I got to give that point to Garrett. Here, hang on.
Yeah, give that
Go
point
ahead.
to Garrett.
Coming back.
That's our review of Little Fockers, wrapping up So Many Fockers month here on the show. If you missed any of them, please go back and check them out at SoManySequels.com or in your favorite podcast app. Just search So Many Sequels. We'll be back next week with our Christmas reveal episode where we're going to tell you what movies we're going to talk about, at least some of the movies we're going to talk about, during December as we celebrate so many Santas. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. Again, you can do that in your favorite podcasting app or on YouTube. Just hit subscribe there, and we've been posting all kinds of videos on there, clips from the show, full episodes. Go check that out again at SoManySequels.com. All right, we will see you all next week. Bye.